with every state and territory the full power of the American economy to support businesses and families. As the president says to us and every day, we'll do whatever.
Can you guys hear me right now? Just wondering.
Yesterday, the
Let me know in chat.
met with the tourism industry executives and also had an engaging discussion with all the top companies in our industrial and medical supply chain. The president, as you all are aware, also announced today that by mutual consent, the northern border to Canada will be closed to non-essential travel. This does not include essential travel or the transit of goods, but it was through mutual discussion that took place this morning between the president and Prime Minister Trudeau, and the Department of Homeland Security will be effectuating that decision. The president spoke with some of the nation's top business leaders today, again, to speak about the supply chain in the country. For our part, we're going to be conducting a conference call later today with state and local health officials to renew our ongoing commitment of cooperation and collaboration. As the president said last week in signing the Stafford Act, he stood up the National Response Coordination Center, and today at the president's direction, FEMA has gone to level 1. FEMA's mission is to support disasters that are locally executed, state managed, and federally supported. And tomorrow, the president will be hosting all the nation's governors from a video conference at FEMA to ensure that they have a full connection to all of the activated regions for FEMA going forward. With regard to testing, I'm pleased to report that we're increasing the number of tests being performed by the thousands every day, thanks to the public-private partnership that President Trump forged with commercial laboratories around the country. Our health experts tell us to remind every American, it's important to remember, people without symptoms should not get tested. We want to make sure that the supply of testing is there for those that need it most or are symptomatic or in the vulnerable population. Dr. Deborah Birx in a moment will address the progress that we're making on testing, the infection rate, our recommendations to every American, as well as some important new findings about the impact on youth that we're gaining from data that's coming in from Europe that'll be important to every American. On the subject of supplies, the president has our task force extremely focused, as the president mentioned that he's invoking the Defense Production Act today. Secretary Esper in a few moments will describe the ongoing efforts that the Department of Defense is taking to make medical resources available. Secretary Robert Wilkie will announce decisions the VA has made to expand hospital capacity within their system. Also, with regard to medical personnel, at the president's direction, HHS is issuing a regulation today that will allow all doctors and medical professionals to practice across state lines to meet the needs of hospitals that may arise in adjoining areas. In addition to that, we are again today asking every American and our medical community leaders and hospitals to partner with us in delaying elective procedures across the country in our healthcare system to ensure that medical supplies and medical capacity go where they're needed most. Seema Verma will describe guidance that CMS will be issuing on that front. And finally, I want to remind every American of the president's 15-day guidance to slow the spread. We are grateful for members of the media and the general public that are adhering to these, sharing them with neighbors and friends. All of our experts continue to believe that if every American will do their part and embrace and put into practice these principles, that we can significantly limit the reach of the coronavirus in the weeks and months ahead. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Dr. Birx, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President. So, we continue to look at data every single day. There are concerning reports coming out of France and Italy about some young people getting seriously ill and very seriously ill in the ICUs. We think part of this may be that people heeded the early data coming out of China and coming out of South Korea that the elderly or those with pre-existing medical conditions.
Well, that's really concerning. That's what I did not want to hear.
It may have been that the millennial generation, our largest generation, our future generation that will carry us through for the next multiple decades. There may be disproportional number of infections among that group. And so even if it's a rare occurrence, it may be seen more frequently in that group and be evident now. So we're looking at that information very carefully. We have not seen any significant mortality in the children, but we are concerned about the early reports coming out of Italy and France. So again, I'm going to call on that generation that's part of that group that brought us innovation, particularly throughout all of their ability to look around corners and skip through games. I always went level by level. I didn't realize that you could go from level 3 to level 7. That's what they've taught us. They look for things that we don't see. We need them to be healthy. So again, not only calling on you to heed what's in the guidance, but to really ensure that each and every one of you are protecting each other. And so we cannot have these large gatherings that continue to occur throughout the country for people who are off work to then be socializing in large groups and spreading the virus. You have the potential then to spread it to someone who does have a condition that none of us knew about and cause them to have a disastrous outcome. Finally, on the testing piece and what we're learning, I know last week in bringing the private sector, I think what has been exciting to me over the last 2.5 weeks is to see this administration harness the full capacity of the private sector, understanding that a lot of our solutions that we need to confront this virus rely on the private sector. Bringing the private sector commercial labs was critical into this process. We are now beginning to see that they have spread out in a prioritized way because we asked them to prioritize the regions that were mostly affected. And so you still may have difficulty getting tests in areas that do not have significant cases. We've had them prioritize the regions where we need diagnosis and their diagnostic percent. Remember I told you South Korea was under 4%, so 96% of people were negative. The last report we've seen from the laboratories have about a 7+% positivity rate. Still 93+% or 92% are negative. But I think that's encouraging to me personally that we're prioritizing appropriately to those areas that have the greatest need. Today and yesterday, Thermo Fisher pushed out most of their laboratory testing capacity. And that will dramatically increase that platform and the ability to run additional tests in addition to Roche. So I appreciate everybody's attention to these numbers. I'm excited that we've prioritized where the need was the greatest. But again, please follow the guidance and please make sure in every report that you're putting out that you're talking about the presidential guidance to actually stop the spread of this virus. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah, very much.
I just want to point out, they said that in Italy that they're starting to get all these cases of younger people getting very severe cases. So that's one thing I was kind of fearing. Not glad to hear that.
On our 3 priorities. That's first of all, protecting our personnel and their families. Second, safeguarding our national security mission capabilities. And third, of course, supporting the administration's whole of government approach. First of all, though, I do want to assure the American people that the United States military remains ready and capable of defending the country and our interests abroad. Now, with that, the department is leaning forward in our response to COVID-19. We have issued international and domestic travel restrictions to all DoD personnel and families that should dramatically reduce potential exposure to the virus. Those have been in place for some time now. As I announced yesterday, the Department of Defense will make available up to 5 million N95 respirator masks and other personal protective equipment from our own strategic reserves to the Department of Health and Human Services for distribution. The first 1 million masks will be available immediately. We're also prepared to distribute to HHS up to 2,000 operational deployable ventilators for use as needed. Yesterday, I was at Fort Detrick, Maryland, which is probably the military's premier research institute, where I got updated on the incredible work our people are doing as part of the interagency team to work on vaccines and therapeutics. They are making great progress there. We also have announced that we've certified our 16th lab, or will soon certify our 16th lab to help with processing tests from across the country. Additionally, I have directed, as the president mentioned, that the hospital ships Mercy and Comfort be prepared to deploy to increase the nation's medical capacity. And we have also alerted a variety of field and expeditionary hospitals to be prepared to deploy as well as needed based on direction from the Commander-in-Chief. Today, leadership from the Army Corps of Engineers is in New York, meeting with Governor Cuomo and his team. I spoke with Governor Cuomo yesterday and other governors. I will be speaking to more in the coming days to make sure that they know what DoD can provide through our system to address their needs. In my conversations with governors and members of Congress about DoD's resources, I've made it clear that we will continue to support the administration's comprehensive efforts and the country every step of the way while ensuring our nation's security remains the top priority. I want to conclude by thanking again all of our service members and their families who have been affected by this outbreak. They are all great heroes. We are continuing to support them throughout this. We are all in this together. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you. So yesterday, the president made a very important announcement about telehealth, and this is allowing our 62 million seniors to be able to get some medical services from the safety of their home, reducing their risk and without any copays. But we're also making sure that the healthcare system is prepared and that those on the front lines have the support that they need. The reality is the stakes are high, and we need to preserve personal protective equipment for those that are on the front lines of this fight. And to that end, we have put out guidelines over the last 2 weeks to expand the types of masks that can be used in routine care and saving those N95s for the most risky situations. Conserving personal protective equipment is also essential to combat the virus. So today, CMS will announce detailed recommendations to further promote this needed conservation, specifically by limiting non-essential elective medical and surgical procedures, including dental procedures. We believe that these recommendations will help surgeons, patients, and hospitals prioritize what is essential while leaving the ultimate decision in the hands of state and local health officials and those clinicians who have direct responsibility to their patients. And we urge providers and clinicians and patients to seriously consider these recommendations. They will not only preserve equipment, but it also allows doctors and nurses to help those that are on the front lines. And it'll protect patients from unnecessary exposure to the virus. We fully appreciate that this is going to have a major impact on the healthcare system, but the shared sacrifice is essential to help those that are on the front lines. And I want to thank the medical societies such as the American College of Surgeons and the American Dental Association that took a proactive approach and already posted these recommendations. And we've also talked to the American Medical Association, and they have fully indicated their support for this recommendation. We now invite the entire healthcare community to join us in this effort. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Robert, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. My instructions from the president were very clear. I was to do everything imaginable as aggressively as possible to protect the 9.5 million veterans who are part of the Department of Veterans Affairs. Last month, we established 19 emergency operations centers across the country. We began to limit the number of visitors who entered our facilities. We began, I think, we were the first system to begin triaging across the country in our 170 hospitals, the entrance of anyone into our facility without being questioned or tested. We expanded those restrictions to those in our 135 community living centers, which have about 7,800 veterans who are in acute conditions, to make sure that they were protected. We also took the next step and made sure that we limited the dental surgeries that we were provided. We've cut back by 1/3 the number of routine appointments we have had, and we have canceled elective surgeries. These were all part of the president's directive to be as aggressive in a public health sense as we could be. And I think we have set the pace for the entire country. I will say, we've often said that we work the most noble mission in the federal government. Our veterans have been in the toughest spots in the world. They have been.
Hey, Rob, if you want to just like say something
to most Americans.
Sure. Can you hear me?
They have
yeah, because I mean, we don't have to listen to hang on every word here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind listening to them, but it's kind of fluff. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, just so you know, everyone, I might, if this pest control guy comes, I go to Hornet's Nest. He's coming. I don't know what time he's supposed to be here, so I might have to run for a quick minute. But yeah, I mean, my takeaway on this is I'm more pessimistic about this whole thing than I've been about our country in a long, long time, even more than watching McCabe and Comey and Clapper and all them go free. And the reason is this. I think that we've been winning inroads into showing how terrible the propagandists that pretend to be media people are. People are starting to distrust them, to know that they're liars. And now all of a sudden it's like everyone's clamoring to be the person virtue signaling the most. Please take my rights away. Don't question the government. Don't question the media. Please do whatever you can to take my rights away.
Hold on. Let's catch this real quick.
Sure.
And he said that unemployment could skyrocket to 20%. Are we looking that could rival the Great Depression? Are we looking at potentially historic
I don't agree with that.
devastation?
Yeah, no, I don't agree. That's a absolute total worst case scenario. But no, we don't look at that at all.
So they're not interested in
We're nowhere
unemployment
near
now, but they'll definitely be if that happens, of
The
course.
Chinese virus. There are reports of dozens of incidents of bias against Chinese Americans in this country.
Oh my
Their
God.
own aide, Secretary Azar, because he does not use this term. He says ethnicity does not cause the virus. Why do you keep using this? A lot of people say it's racist.
It's not racist at all. No, not at all. It comes from China. That's why. It
Exactly.
comes from China. I want to be accurate. Yeah, please, John. Please.
Okay. Are these people at all interested? Are they concerned about the violence against whites that occurs because of their nonstop demonization of white people? This is
at one point, maybe they stopped now, that it was caused by American soldiers. That can't happen. It's not going to happen. Not as long as I'm president. It comes from China. John, please.
Two questions, if I could, Mr. President.
CNN called it the Wuhan virus on multiple occasions. All the media did.
On the floor a short time ago.
What a stupid thing to focus on. Jeez.
I mean, they're actively helping Chinese propagandists. Look, I've said from the get-go, the fact that we're so willing to shut our country down over this, what a weapon we've given to China. Every flu season now, all they have to do is use their allies in the NBA, Hollywood, and academia to say, hey, I hear this flu season's going to be bad, and we're just going to shut the country down. We'll be overtaken by China in 3 years at this rate.
Yep.
If we need to use it, we'll be using it at full speed ahead.
He says it's urgently needed to be used. Do you have some
Well,
targets?
we're going to know whether or not urgent, but we will. Yeah, we do have targets. We have targets for certain pieces of equipment. We have targets for masks. The masks, the numbers of masks are incredible. We've ordered millions of them, but we need millions more. A thing like this has never been requested, and we've never had to even think in terms of these numbers, but we need millions of masks, and all of that will be ordered. We need respirators. We need ventilators is a big thing because it's a complex piece of equipment. So we have a lot of ventilators, but we're going to be ordering more.
And second question, what size will the checks be that will be sent out to them?
To be determined. We're working with the Senate right now. We're working with everybody on Capitol Hill. There's been tremendous there really has been, I mean, with some exceptions, obviously, because it's always the way it is, but there has been, they've been getting along very well, Republicans and Democrats. It's a nice thing, very bipartisan, so forth.
See them more than $1,000?
Well, we're going to see. I don't want to get into that right now, John. We are looking at different numbers. We're looking at timing that would be different, splitting the time, splitting the payments. We're looking at a lot of different things. Hasn't been determined yet, but it will shortly be determined, and people want to go big as opposed, everybody seems to want to go big. And they want to get to the recovery. The big day is the big thing we can do is get rid of this horrible, I call it the unseen enemy. You call it, there's 1,000 different terms for it, but whatever, it snuck up on us. And it did 128 countries. I think it's in something like that, very close to that. Think of that. So it spreads violently. It's a very contagious, very, very contagious virus.
Do you consider America to be on a wartime footing in terms of fighting this virus?
I do. I actually do. I'm looking at it that way because, if it got out of control, the big thing we did was a very early stoppage of people coming in who could be very, very heavily infected. That was a very good move. And it was very early, very, very early when most people, including a lot of professionals, they didn't want us to do it. That really saved a lot of lives. And yeah, I look at it, I view it as in a sense, a wartime president. I mean, that's what we're fighting. I mean, it's a very tough situation. You have to do things. You have to close parts of an economy that 6 weeks ago were the best they've ever been. We had the best economy we've ever had. And then one day you have to close it down in order to defeat this enemy. And but we're doing it, and we're doing it well. And I'll tell you, the American people have been incredible. For the most part, they've been really incredible. Yeah, please, Caitlin.
For you, and then I have one for Secretary Wilkie as well, but I'll start with you. You just said there are a tremendous number of ventilators that we have, but for weeks, hospitals have been warning about a critical shortage that they say we are not prepared for. So why did it take so long to invoke the Defense Production
Well, you know,
Act?
hospitals are supposed to have ventilators too. And when we have thousands of ventilators, it sounds like a lot, but this is a very unforeseen thing. Nobody ever thought of these numbers. Nobody ever saw numbers like this, even with regard to testing. Normally, we wouldn't be doing testing, and they decided to do it. Very, very hard to ramp up. Now we're getting highly sophisticated tests, and it's going very well, but nobody's ever heard of testing in the kind of quantities that you're talking about.
But we knew for
But-
weeks we needed more ventilators. So why did it take so
Well, we
long?
knew, it depends. It depends on how it goes. Worst case, absolutely. Best case, not at all. So we're gonna
Media
have
trying to
see
score
where it goes,
political
but
points.
we
That's
are
all that
ordering,
is.
Yeah, well, she asked Schumer why Congress didn't pass bills
Right.
earlier.
Right.
That's their job.
but we're ordering.
Where was this
Does
concern
anybody have
during
a-
past pandemics? There was
how many
none
do
of
we
this.
have?
Right. And Trump's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. If he goes
Right.
out and says, I'm going to just spend a bunch of money on this, they'd say, you're not a dictator. Spending goes through Congress. But then
Right.
when he says, okay, I'll leave Congress handle the spending, they say, why did it take you 2 weeks? I mean, so
Yeah. It's like on Twitter. They've been doing that same thing. It's like no matter what he does, as soon as he does what they want him to do, they attack him for that. It's a joke. And it's also one of the reasons I'm having trouble taking all of this seriously. Because if it is that serious, why are they playing these games?
That exist today in the
I mean,
market.
not to, if people don't mind me speaking over Pence here. I mean, look at Congress itself. Like, if Drone Tech, if you were told that something had the chance to like literally destroy your family, it was this one specific thing, and you needed to come up with a plan to deal with that, you would come up with a plan that focused on that and only that, and it would be urgent, right? You
Right.
wouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to focus on that, but I also want to make sure I upgrade my cable package to get NFL Red Zone. And yet somehow Congress that tells us this pandemic's going to wipe us all out, they had plenty of time to put plenty of pork projects about abortion and stuff like that in the
Right.
spending bill. Now, if you were serious, wouldn't you put that stuff aside and say, hey, we'll deal with abortion 2 months from
Exactly.
One second.
now? But so
Hold on one
that's
second.
sure. That's why I don't trust them.
Questions, Mr. President.
Oh,
you.
man.
The first one on the Canadian border.
The
What was
activist
the tipping
journalist.
point? Friday we talked about it, and Monday you said no, we're not considering.
No, I said not yet. I spoke with the Prime Minister, Trudeau.
Yeah,
Very
I remember him
good
saying not yet.
relationship,
What these
between
people just
us
they're
and
not
the two
professionals
countries.
at what they do.
And no tipping point. It's
Well, a
just
professional
we want-
propagandist.
we want
Right,
to
they're good at
isolate
that,
them,
yeah.
and We don't want people coming into contact.
I mean, not
because that's the
that
way
good
we're
because
gonna
we
win this
see right
war.
through it.
Right.
But
And we both thought it was time. Now, it's not affecting trade. It's non-essential. It's non-essential crossings. It won't affect trade at all. And it was just something we thought would be good for both countries. Yes, please.
Second question, Mr. President. How can you be sure that trade
Go ahead,
is not
please.
going to be a factor of the virus? How can you be sure that trade and everything is
He can't.
shipped from one side?
Well,
to the
Nobody
in a very
could.
careful manner. You can only be
I hate these
vigilant
people.
and very professional, but we're not. It's not pertaining at this moment to trade between the two countries. Yeah, please.
We are hearing that the $1 trillion economic stimulus package could look something like $50 billion for the airlines, $150 billion in loan guarantees for critical sectors of the economy, a $250 billion payment on April 6th directly to individuals, another $250 billion payment on May 18th, again, directly to individuals, and as well, $300 billion for small business loan guarantees. Is that, in the general sense, what
It could
you're
be.
looking at?
It could be, and we're also playing with a lot of numbers, a lot of very big numbers, and a lot of very small numbers.
I can't believe like they're about to do UBI basically. And will that go away when this is all
It's
over?
happening.
I doubt
Some
it.
people could say it was
It's a mess.
somebody's fault, actually. But
I almost feel like Trump's trying to take advantage there. Like, oh, well, I'll take that. I'll take that out of the Democrat tool book or tool belt, you know, and I'll have given it to the people.
Things that have happened. But I will say that they can't be blamed for this. And we want to keep those companies vibrant because there's going to be a comeback very, very quickly as soon as this is solved.
I agree
And
with
it will
that.
be solved. We will win, and there will be a comeback, and it'll take place very quickly.
$250 billion. There's give or take 330 million Americans or so. If you just do the math on that, that's about $750 a person, a family of four. That would be about $3,000 on average. Again, rough math.
Is that where this is
Well,
headed?
no, I don't want to say that because it's a moving, these are all, every number that you mentioned. Yes, we've talked about those numbers. We're also moving those numbers in both directions. So we'll let you know. It's moving along fast. Again, there's a great bipartisan effort going on that I haven't.
I'm psychic, and I see in the future that the media is suddenly going to have a problem with spending.
Right.
FDA approved that.
It's unreal.
We're looking at it. It's down the line, and they're looking at it very seriously. And I think it would be a great thing because the others, to use a nice word, it's very inconvenient. It's very tough.
For you, sir. You tweeted this morning about your approval rating amongst Republicans. You have said that you give yourself a 10 in terms of handling this crisis. How do you reassure Americans at home who don't trust you to handle a crisis of this magnitude?
Well, I think
I'm sure we'd get a question like that if it were a Democrat president. I'm sure.
Termination of the border, the people coming in from China, where this all started, that meant I took it very seriously. And when I use the word calm doesn't mean that I'm not taking it seriously. Calm means, and we should be calm. We should be extremely calm.
Yeah, he's right.
Yeah, 95% within the Republican
Yeah, Cuomo
Party
was
and
playing that
over
up. Oh, we need to be
50%.
calm, not
And I
panic.
also
Let's
have,
put this in perspective. Yet when Trump
have
was doing
very
that, they're like,
approval numbers.
"Oh,
I mean,
he's
people
saying
like
that he's
the
not
job that
taking
we're
it
doing.
seriously and
when
all
you
this."
compare this
And now they
to,
want to
other
prosecute him for murder.
epidemics or
I mean, and
you wanna
let me
use-
just say to Cuomo's
within
credit and some other people, some of them, Cuomo I saw the other day said, "Hey, I think Trump's team's doing a fantastic job." Now I have problems, by the way, with how Trump's handling this. I think that the reason you see people on the left praising him, some of them, is because he's caving in too much. But I do think even the Democrats that I hate, if they come out and they're trying to be like, look, now's not the time to attack Trump, that's a good thing. But clearly, like you said, many are still doing that.
Yeah.
59,000 tests been processed to this point. We just heard from the Atlanta public health director saying that they have fewer than 50 test kits for more than 900,000 citizens.
Yeah,
Where are
well,
the tests?
I'll let Mike answer that.
Well, they explained that yesterday,
So that's a
but
very critical question, and thank you for asking it.
because they have to go
So
through the FDA, they have to go
test
through all
kits
these
that we put
tests.
Out last week through the approval, the rapid movement of that meeting that President Trump called less than 2 weeks ago. That had resulted in bringing our private sector to the table because the test and the platform that was out there could only run between 4 and 12 tests per platform per day. We've now moved into platforms that can run basically tens of thousands of tests per day. So the reason I'm grateful for your question, because it allows me to point out that, of course, then there was backlog. There were individuals who had been tested, who hadn't had their specimen run because of the slow throughput. It's now in a high-speed platform. So we will see the number of people diagnosed dramatically increase over the next 4 to 5 days. I know some of you will use that to raise an alarm that we are worse than Italy because of our slope of our curve. To every American out there, it will be 5 to 6 days worth of tests being run in 24 to 48 hours. So our curves will not be stable until sometime next week. The reason I talked about Thermo Fisher yesterday is because their platform is in 2,000 laboratories. They're the ones that are putting out the 1 million tests this week that will solve the issue that Atlanta and others have brought up. I wanted to be clear. We prioritize the areas. We do county by county analyses. Based on those analyses, on what counties had more than 50 cases, we prioritize the test kits we put out.
Yeah, I like this lady.
That's why
She's
we're
well
seeing a
spoken and
7%
seems to know her stuff.
Positivity rate.
She's one of the best ones on there, I
expand
think.
that platform and reprioritize based on the accessibility of the other kits.
Mr. Benson, perhaps I can follow up. How are non-symptomatic professional athletes getting tests while others are waiting in line and can't get them? Do the well-connected go to the front of the line?
Well, you'd have to ask them that question. I mean, I've read. No, I wouldn't say so, but perhaps that's been the story of life. That does happen on occasion, and I've noticed where some people have been tested.
Shut up, Trump.
Look,
Don't give him ammo. You see heads behind him like, shut up.
This is a system that was out of date, obsolete, or it was a system that was never meant to take care of the kind of quantity the number of people that we're talking about.
Somebody sees a
Millions and
penis.
millions
I
of
don't know what
people.
they're talking about.
If you go back,
I think they thought it was the edge of the podium, they said.
with the flu, nobody had tests before. They didn't test the entire nation to see whether or not they had flu. They got the flu, they got better. Hopefully they got better. That was it. Now, all of a sudden, they do this very complex testing. What we've done is we've broken it down. We've broken up the system, but it was obsolete and/or.
I mean, this is such a stupid point.
that just
Yeah,
wasn't meant to handle
multimillionaires
the
have
volume that we're
access to
talking about.
more medical
We've
technology
rebuilt
than the
it.
rest
Yeah.
of us.
For the future.
But, like, what do you want to do about that? Become totally communist so no one has money? Is that the solution?
And I would imagine it will be
You know
done
that's
in
what
the
they want to
future
do.
It's so dumb.
to a very good system by using private companies, the great private companies. And I have to say, Roche has been doing a very good job. They're
gotta
doing a
get
lot of work.
people
a very good
subscribe. Where's
job. But
SJG?
This was an obsolete system. This was not a system that was meant to do anything like this or even near this. John?
Mr. President, a couple of things. A major trade coalition is calling on you to suspend tariffs with other countries as part of the response to the coronavirus.
Who heads that group? Those countries do. Probably.
No, it's an
Go
American,
check.
it's an American free trade.
I know. I'm sure of free trade. Look, China's paying us billions.
What
and
is all
billions
this
of
like
dollars in tariffs,
arguing on
and there's
behalf
no
of
reason
China?
to
What
do
in the
that.
hell?
Yeah. So China creates this virus, lies to the world, causes these pandemics that strip Americans of their rights. And the response is, hey, we should start doing more free trade with China.
Right.
It's so
Yeah.
dumb.
We'll ask for a suspension or something. Let's see what happens. China's having a very rough time. They have their worst year in 76 years, as I understand it. They're having a very, very tough time. And then on top of it, this happened with the virus. But no, we're taking in billions of dollars a year in tariffs. And this was caused by something totally unrelated to tariffs.
And on asylum seekers and people who
Yeah, you know,
cross the southern
CBS has
border
been praising
illegally
China for their
are
handling of the
planning
virus,
to
too.
invoke 42 USC 265,
Which is
would
weird.
allow you to prohibit entry of certain people.
The
across
answer is
the border.
yes,
And when will that happen?
very soon, probably today. Yes.
I have to throw you in a question for Dr. Burks. On the border, firstly, are there plans to fully shut the Mexican border? And what do you define as essential travel when it comes to the U.S.-Canadian border?
Well, I think essential is medical. We have military working together. We have industry working together. And again, it's not affecting trade. So things like that. But just leisurely, let's go to a restaurant and have dinner, which a lot of people do. They come both ways. They go in both directions. That kind of thing we have ended on a temporary basis. Yeah, please go ahead. Not close it. No, we're not going to close it. But we are invoking.
Yeah, it's Trump's
a
fault. Bat soup is
certain
Trump's fault.
provision that will allow us great latitude as to what we do.
Not that that's where it came from, but
Yeah, go ahead. You know what? Go ahead.
We'll figure out. So I just wanted to clarify something because just
Oh, God.
You all were standing here telling
Let me
us
just
that
clarify
unless you had
something.
sustained contact with somebody who was symptomatic for COVID-19, you really didn't need to worry. You told the president, vice president, that if they shook hands with people who had this, if they took a photograph with somebody who had this, they didn't really need to worry. And yet, several days later, we're in a situation where people are being told, don't leave your houses. There are curfews saying you cannot walk alone at night.
oh my
After a
God.
certain
See, this
time.
is pure
Walk
like
us through what seems like a very
he already was
dramatic-
tested. He
a very
doesn't have
dramatic
it.
Disconnect from what we were hearing before to what we're hearing now.
So two things. We look at data all the time, and I know you're looking at the China and South Korea data. And when you look at China and South Korea data and you look what China and South Korea did, you can see that their curves are not only blunted outside of Wuhan. So the Chinese
Yeah, I
areas
wanna talk
outside of
about that maybe a
Wuhan,
little bit
blunted
if we have
curve,
time
and South
after this.
Korea, blunted curve. If you look at their curve today, they're already
Try to explain to
on
people what
the
that's
far
about because a lot of
end
people don't get
their
it.
epidemic curve. Of course, none of those countries are fully back to work. And so that's what we worry about too. Secondly, there was a series of scientific articles published, and I know you've seen them too, about surface contamination. I think none of us really understood the level of surface piece. So we're still working out how much is it by human-human transmission and how much is it by surface. And this is why those fundamental guidelines were put out.
You know
that
what
says
I
don't
kind of see
expose
here
yourself to
happening here,
surfaces
Robert? It's
outside
almost
the home.
like they're
Basically, what those
attacking the
guidelines are,
administration
don't
for being
expose
cautious,
yourself
not
to
like
such
flying off the
number of
handle right off the
persons
bat
who
and
are
trying to keep
asymptomatic
people
and
from
infected, and then
panicking.
the person
And they're
who's in
like
contact.
punishing him for that. as if to
Expose
like
yourself
sort
to
of condition
surfaces
people
that
to just
could have
accept
had
the
the virus
hype and the
on,
panic
for
at the
which
beginning
on
and do
hard
whatever they say to
surfaces, and then we
do,
had the
or
carbon
else
Right.
about
you're going to
treating
get this.
hard surfaces.
Right. And I mean, that's exactly the position they're trying to put. Remember, the knock that they've been claiming since Trump got elected was he's a dictator. So they're on one hand, they keep saying, oh, you're not doing enough. You're not doing enough. You're not doing enough. And then when he does something, they say, oh, there goes the dictator. He stopped
Right.
travel to Europe. Oh, he did this. He did that. So, yeah, I mean, and me and you had been predicting, I know this is something we talked about, that, you know, they were going to pull out all the stops to crash the economy before the election because they knew that's the only chance they had at beating Trump in 2020. I didn't predict it was going to be through a virus, but,
Right.
you know,
Yeah,
that's
who could have
clearly
known
what
that?
they're doing. Right. That's
It's always
clearly
something
what
that we don't guess, you know?
Right.
That would expand the use of investigational drugs against the virus, but the FDA scientists are warning that this could put patients at risk.
I haven't seen the article. No, I haven't seen the article. We are making a lot of progress therapeutically. I will say that, but I have not seen that article. No. Go ahead.
Mr. President, we've shut down non-essential travel to Canada. Are you considering shutting down all travel to brunt the spread of the virus? And
To
we've
brunt?
heard from industries
Brunt it.
like
Is that a
the
word?
airlines who are seeking relief. What other industries or how exactly is your administration going to determine which industries and businesses get
Well, there
help?
are certain industries that people know. I mean, the airlines would be number one. If you look at what's going on, they go from having the best year they've ever had to having no passengers because of what we've had to do
Well,
in order to win this war. It's a war.
the airlines have had problems on and off. They've had to be bailed out a few times now, haven't they?
Right.
What we want to do is we want to make sure they all stay together so that after the war is won, we can immediately go right back up to where we were and even beyond. I think we're going to go beyond where we were. And a lot of people are saying that, by the way. We're poised to do that. But we have to win the war first. Yeah, please, go ahead.
To follow up on that, Treasury proposed $150 billion today for those industries, but their proposal doesn't detail which industries would get that money and how much. So aside from the airlines, which you just mentioned, what about the cruise industry, the hotels? How much of that money do you see them each
We're
getting?
talking about all of it. Haven't detailed it yet. We have detailed it to senators and to members of the House. We have been talking about it, and we're coming up with numbers. Haven't gotten there yet, but certainly hotel industry, the cruise ship industry, the airlines, those are all prime candidates, absolutely.
The northern border, sir. When you say
Which
temporary,
border?
the northern border.
Yeah.
When you say temporary, which is what you said in your tweet, does that mean 30 days?
I would say 30 days, and hopefully at the end of 30 days, we'll be in great shape.
Hey, you mind if I say something real quick, Jerome Tech?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Here's a tweet from Chuck Schumer 4 days ago on 3/13/20. Quote, as other actions are considered, President Trump must not overstep his authority or indulge in his autocratic tendencies for purposes not truly related to the public health crisis. You see, he doesn't do enough. He's horrible. He's responsible for murder, as the video you're going to release later tonight shows. And then when he does something, oh, that's his autocratic tendencies from Chuck
Yes,
Schumer.
exactly.
That's exactly
Meanwhile,
what I'm talking about.
there's autocratic tendencies at the local level happening all over the country.
Yep.
It's just a question of time, and I wanted to go quickly. So based on the fact that I wanted to go quickly, I hope they just listen to what we've been saying over the last period of time. We don't want them gathering, and I see they do gather, including on beaches and including in restaurants, young people. They don't realize that they're feeling.
Yeah, did you see that video from Florida of all the spring breakers?
Yeah.
They were feeling totally invincible, or are feeling that way, but they don't realize that they can be carrying lots of bad things home to grandmother and grandfather and even their parents. So we want them to heed the advice. We mean the advice, and I think it's getting through. I do believe it's getting through, Jim.
They're watching.
Please.
They're watching. What do you say to them if they're watching? Sorry.
Is there what?
I think there are a lot of them watching. A lot of these people at home, these young people.
Well, I think I just said it.
He just said it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh God, these people! I need to get a job in the press corps. It
Yeah, I know.
apparently isn't that hard.
Okay. Say it.
Thank you, Mr. President. In talking about China, you've been very clear about who you think is to blame or where the origin to blame for this virus is.
Not think. No. I don't think. I know where it came from. I don't know if you'd say China's
Good point.
to blame. Certainly, we didn't get an early run on it. It would have been helpful if we knew about it earlier. But it comes from China, and it's not a question about that. Nobody's questioning that.
Senator Cotton is saying that they should be punished, in so many words, for inflicting this on the American people. Do you feel that way about it?
Well, I have a lot of
Why are
respect
you so
for
concerned about China?
Tom Cotton, and I know exactly what he's been saying. And there are those people that say that. So we'll see what happens. Thank you. Go ahead. It's your turn. Go ahead. Please. He's been waiting a long time. Please. You've had your hand up so nicely for a long time. It's your time.
Thank you, sir. We've seen the Chinese government kick out reporters from the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Washington Post. What is your message to the Chinese when it comes
All
to
Chinese
transparency
shills.
at a moment where you still have reporters asking you
Hey,
questions
thanks,
about the
Sidewalk
White
Close.
House?
Appreciate
I'm
it,
not
buddy.
happy to see it. I don't, I have my own disputes with all three of those media groups. I think you know that very well. But I don't like seeing that at all. I'm not happy.
Yeah,
about that
Emmy,
at all.
I have a feeling you're right.
Yes, please.
You didn't correct the language, so I wonder if you agree with it. Do you believe that China is inflicting this upon our country?
No, I don't believe they're inflicting.
Would
I think
you-
they could have given
what?
us a lot earlier notice.
Huh?
Absolutely.
Not China. They would never do that.
Yeah, Mr. President, your credibility ratings are very low. There's a recent NPR poll.
The media's credibility ratings are really low.
Because I see that they're very high. You know, if you look, I'm 95% in the Republican Party. We just had a poll that was done by a very reputable group where I'm beating Sleepy Joe Biden by a lot in Florida, in the state of Florida, and in other states. You know, so I don't really know who you're
I wish you
talking
could
about.
post pictures
Jennifer,
in
go
the
ahead, please,
chat.
please.
Yeah, I know.
On your conversation with the airline executives,
Yeah.
did you explain to them what's coming? What was their
I
reaction?
did, and they explained to me where they're coming from. I mean, they went from, as I said, full planes, packed, the best year they've ever had by far, to boom, one day empty because of what we have to do to get rid of, to win this war. Or we would have a level of death like people haven't seen before. So they've been fantastic. I mean, they've been great, but you know, they went from being extremely happy to being people that are running companies that are going to need some help, and we'll help them, Jennifer.
On SBA loans, would you be willing to give us an update on how that's going? We've been getting some reports that counties have been having difficulty getting.
Well, there's a lot of influx to those loans, as you can imagine. A lot of people are looking at it, but we're going to be increasing funding a lot. They're very well prepared to do what they have to do, and the SBA is doing a fantastic job. She is doing a really good job, the administrator. John?
President, a couple of questions for Dr. Burks.
Yeah.
If I could. Dr. Burks, French researchers have had some luck with hydroxychloroquine in shortening the duration of disease. Is that something that might be in the arsenal of therapeutics here in the United States?
I think we're exploring every one of those issues. The president asked for a critical briefing on that.
It's kind of
today.
weird to
We
me too
opened
how the
with
media
that.
seems to be pushing them to
It is
jump
more than
on
that
whatever they
single
hear
drug.
about. Like,
There
oh,
are
we hear
other
there's something,
drugs
jump
that
on it.
individuals
And it's
are
like if they
looking
did that and
Just
it
to
had some sort of
go
negative
back to what
consequence,
we've
they'd be
talked
all
about
over them
many
for that. It's like
times.
they're just
There
trying to set them
is
up.
things
Yep.
look
I
really
agree 100%.
Same thing with the
against
tests.
the virus
Like,
that may look good in small animals and then don't have
Right. And what she's saying here, it's the same thing you're saying about the
that-
tests, which is,
that
you
we're
know, if
looking
they rush these tests out or they rush, for example, masks out and they're not effective and they actually cause more harm than benefit, all of a sudden now it's, oh, can you believe Trump rushed this stuff out? I mean, it takes time. It does to develop medicines, to develop manufacture these goods. The real lesson is we shouldn't have let our government sell us out for 30 years to China, selling our entire medical and manufacturing sector out to China so that our politicians could get rich. That's the lesson learned. But after those same people sold us out for 30 years and were totally patting themselves on the back for it, now they're saying, Trump, you need to do more. Do something immediately. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is.
the curves in Italy because of their different approach, and we're following every single country's curves. And so all we can do is look at prior coronavirus and prior respiratory infection RNA viruses. These are RNA viruses. When you look at flu in the Northern Hemisphere, when you look at parainfluenza and some of the other cold viruses, and if you look at SARS, that's the way the peak normally occurs. But that is a November to April. We all started later. And so you're asking me to predict based on a later start. And that's what we're trying to really look at China and
Yeah.
South Korea.
I feel like the media is taking advantage of that too.
All right, Caitlin, go ahead.
A question for Secretary Wilkie, if you don't mind, or you can answer if you'd like. How many veterans of those that need to be tested have been tested?
Those that have needed to be tested, we believe we've caught most of them. Right now, we have 44 veterans who have tested positive. Sadly, one has passed in Portland. We are working with state labs and private companies to make sure that testing is available. Because the president had us out aggressively early, we have been in a better place than most healthcare systems in the country. I cannot predict, as Dr. Burke said, when the next surge will be, if it will be. But one of the things that we do at VA is that we prepare for national emergencies, be they national disasters or epidemics. We started preparing for this. We started stockpiling equipment. Our equipment is stable. And I think that's in large part because of the instructions the president gave me.
But do you have a number of how many have been tested out of the number that
We've tested several hundred. I can't give you the record. Yeah, we've tested several hundred. Yes, we've tested several hundred. I don't know exactly. I do know that 44 veterans have the virus. Most of those are quarantined.
You know what's most maddening about a lot of this is that likely once it passes and all the hysteria turned out to be nothing, the media will never have to pay a price, you know, for creating that, and they'll never go back and correct themselves.
Well, like I said, to me, what the big story here is, I'm not saying the virus could be as bad as they're saying. Theoretically, it could be. I don't believe it is, but they could be right. And certainly, if it is as bad as they're claiming, you would want some government action like we're seeing. My problem is so many people that understand the government and the media lied to us over and over when it comes to these wars, when it comes to impeaching Trump, etc., over and over again. So many of those people I see on Twitter that were against the Russia collusion hoax are not only saying, please come take my rights away from me right now, please, in the name of safety, but you're immoral if you dare question this. Our founding fathers were very specific that we should question and scrutinize every single time the government infringes on our freedom and liberty. So I don't think it makes me un-American for saying I want exact answers as what is the threshold for when you could shut the country down like this? How many people do you think need to potentially be infected before we could shut the government down? How many people do you think could potentially die? What is our assurances that the next time that swine flu or SARS or West Nile or all these other viruses that were supposed to wipe us all out, that we don't shut the government down over that? Now, I get all this stuff people are saying is this 5G? Was this intentional? Again, we can have that debate, but to me, where we start is we need to wake Americans up. You don't have to think this was intentionally set off by Democrats or George Soros or China. All you need to do is say this: am I willing to trust these people so implicitly that have lied to me for 50 years to take away my rights? And if I give it up this time, then next time when West Nile comes that would have only killed 100 of us, and they say, oh, sorry, we got to shut the government down. Once you're in perpetual poverty, then how many people will die of that?
Yep.
That to me is the big story. And I don't hear anyone, this people that were allies with me on the whole, don't believe the government, don't believe these agencies when they're saying the FBI is legit and the Russia hoax, it was all garbage. Now they're telling me I'm immoral because I'm like, wait a minute, I want to hear some answers. I want some threshold arguments. I want, an exact specific outline of when the government's allowed to take these rights from me. How bad do they think it's going to get? And I'm being told I'm un-American for wanting that.
Right.
And I'm jeopardizing lives.
You just
That's
want the
garbage.
virus to spread.
Right. It's such garbage. It
I know.
infuriates me because everything that we've worked so hard for to protect our rights, to fight against these propagandists, some of the biggest allies we had are now attacking us saying, how dare you question the narrative today?
Yeah, I agree.
We've seen that before the pandemic, there were a lot of Americans that were already alienated. We saw deaths of despair increasing through suicide and other things. Now, as these individuals, a lot of times in rural parts of the country, are self-isolating, what is your message to those individuals, and what do you hope that individuals, communities, and churches will do to reach out?
My message is to all Americans, but to those Americans who are going through a lot, we love them, we're with them, and we will not let them down. Thank you all very much.
I love how they shout the questions like he's walking away. All righty. Well, I guess that's do you think it's okay to say that? It's not okay. We in the media have decided.
I mean, imagine take out that argument to the logical extent. Then would that mean then that we can't say the Republican tax cut? If you think tax cuts are bad, how dare you call it the Republican tax cut? That's bigoted. Like, what are you talking about? We're placing blame where it deserves. Now, remember, the same group that's criticizing that and saying it's racist, the exact same people. We know that the number one way to stop any pandemic is to have precautions before the pandemic hits, right? So, like, no matter how good your healthcare system is, if you take no precautions and you wait to fight a pandemic once it's already started, you're starting off on a losing foot. So the same people that are now saying Trump's racist for saying this, Trump's the only one who spoke up and said, hey, it's ridiculous. We've sold out our manufacturing sector to China. Trump's one of the only ones that said, we need a wall. We need to stop the free flow of immigration of people. These people endorsed those policies that would have the most detrimental effect in spreading a pandemic. And now they're again playing the advocate for China, saying, how dare you blame this on China? Don't call out the Chinese. She said, you want to talk about racist? She goes, what about the Chinese Americans? Don't you feel? No, because they're Americans. They're not Chinese.
They're not from China.
So the fact that you conflate the communist dictatorial government of China with actual regular Americans who happen to have Chinese heritage, you're the bigot, not Trump. Right. Oh, it's so infuriating.
Has she taken a poll? Like, how do they know? Why is she attributing one broad view to a group of people based on their ethnicity or whatever? And I kind of shouted out, I'm like, oh, but you won't take that position when, I've talked about that before, the way the media will kind of cover up, like if a group of black teens robs a store, they'll say a group of teens and they won't, make an issue of the skin color. And they'll say, if you were to ask them, they'd say, oh, well, we don't want any negative backlash on that community. Right. Yet that's never the case when they're talking about white America or whatever,
I mean, but to make it a humorous, Norm Macdonald's one of my favorite comedians, and he has a podcast, and he had I forget her name, but he had a comedian on who's kind of a social justice-y type person, and she's starting to talk about how, Islamic terrorism's not a bad deal, and blah 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 blah, just this same type of crap, right? And Norm Macdonald, in a way only he can, he goes, yeah, my greatest fear is that Islamic terrorists will launch a nuclear device over a major city in the United States. Can you imagine then all the mean things that would be said to Muslims? And she's like, yeah, I know. Like, doesn't even get the point that he's making fun of her. Like, oh, forget about the people that died of the nuclear weapon. The real crime would be that Muslims might have their feelings hurt. I mean, it's just, that's exactly what we're seeing here. Like, literally, these same people that are like, it's racist to not want open borders. Now they're telling us, now that we've messed up and our policies have actually helped contribute to this pandemic, sorry, Americans, now we need to take all of your rights away and you have to just stay in your house and you're not allowed to leave. And yeah, that probably means you'll have trouble affording shelter and affording food and your business will probably collapse. But, oh, well, it was worth it to not feel like a racist, right? We didn't want to actually have, closed borders and control who could come in. That would be bad. That would be racist. And by the way, these people are all extremely wealthy. They don't care that things are shut down. It's just a vacation for them.
Right.
Meanwhile, my friends and family that are living paycheck to paycheck, now they're not going to work. What are they going to do?
Right.
And for what? To stop 100 people for getting the flu?
Yeah. And I just jotted this down when I was listening to Cuomo earlier. He said 80% of people will get it and get over it without a hospital visit. So what is this all about? That sounds pretty much like the flu. I mean, maybe a little higher percentage that are getting hospitalized, but
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, just piggybacking on what you said, they tried to get our rights. The Patriot Act came out, everything after 9/11. It's the fear of terrorism and using that to get our rights. It's like that didn't quite work out. But now they definitely know now that a virus will do it because everybody's just folding like immediately.
And it's something me and you've talked about a lot, even with climate change, right? Like me and you, we've talked, ever since I've been doing shows with you, we've talked about kind of how we get lied to by the federal government into like these ridiculous wars and things like that. Well, it's becoming tougher to lie us into that because, telling us all those evil Ruskies, the Russian boogeyman, they're out to get us all. Heck, you could get on Google Hangouts and talk to someone from Russia right now. Hey, maybe they're not the evil monsters we saw, but a disease, climate change. The same people that are skeptical when the government lies to take our rights through things like the Patriot Act because we have to fight terrorism, they clamor over, please take my rights away to fight climate change. Please take my rights away to fight the pandemic. As if the same people are unwilling to lie to you, just like they did about the wars, just like they did about Libya, like they did about Iraq, like they did about Afghanistan, like they did about Syria. But trust them, the same people that lied to you about the Russia collusion hoax for 3 years, trust them this time when they say, now you have to stay indoors and lose your job and, or you're un-American, you're a terrible person if you don't listen to them this time. Hey, I'll see if you're still on. I got to poke out the Hornet guys here, so I'm going to go beat up a hornet's nest real quick.
Well, good luck with that, man. I do appreciate you for stopping by. It's always great.
Thanks for having me. Thank you, everyone.
Yep. Later, man. Yep. And I'm probably going to go ahead and wrap this up as well. I got to get this video for tonight completed. You should all check it out tonight at 5 Eastern. I think you'll like the topic. It'll blow your mind. And I did just want to, I don't know if I can do the chest here. I can't do the chest, guys. Sorry. Over at D Live. Can't do the chest. We don't have enough. Oh, wait. Oh, I just added 50 lemon to the chest. Maybe that we can do it now. Hey, I did. Let's do it. So if you all aren't over on D Live, I'll post a link so you can check that out. It's pretty cool. You do live streams. People, you get built-in point system that is equal to actual money, and you can get them. You can distribute them during the live stream, and then after the live stream, you distribute out rewards to the top commenters, the top donators, and that sort of thing. So it's kind of fun thing. We can all get in on it. And of course, yep, there you go. So here, I'll put it up on the screen so you guys can all see it real quick here. There we go. So as you can not yet.